2021 marks the 30th anniversary of the Zoeller Engineered Products brand. In celebration of this achievement, we've invited John Enyart, Steve Doolittle, and my father, John Zoeller, here today. At Zoeller, these guys are typically thought of as the three founding fathers of the Zepp brand. We brought you here together to share the experience of the Zepp brand from the early years, your experience building a brand from the ground up, and your thoughts on this milestone. Appreciate you guys being here. So, if you guys could let me know, when you came to start working at Zoeller, what was your role prior to the Zepp brand being brought on board? And then what was your first role with Zepp?
I was hired in the mid-year 1990 by Don Fleming, and I was brought in to start up the sales and marketing side of Engineered Products.
I came to Zoeller in 1986, and I was working on workstations and assembly lines for the 267 line, 262 line, and worked on the fiberglass Quick John, the original one that we started with. Left for a short period of time, came back in 1989 when Kenny Zoeller called me and asked me if I would be interested in working in this new Zoeller Engineered Products project. And I took that chance to come back to the Zoeller company and stay for the next 30 years.
I was hired to lead this effort, and with my industry experience to be able to add the things that the industry was looking for, that we would be able to service that industry.
Who first had the idea for a commercial municipal line, and what was their vision, if you know it?
The momentum picked up a little bit in the early 80s, I think 1984 to be specific, something I came across that Don Fleming wrote, and it had to do with the possibility of acquiring a manufacturer of bigger pumps.
All the leaders before us, when they were looking, how do we expand Zoeller and keep it growing and getting into new markets, and we were getting bigger pumps all along, and so this became that next step.
The first attempt to make a large pump was the 405, and that was before we had these pumps that came from the Robinson Meyer line. And it was a 4-inch discharge, 3-inch solid passing, and that was our first attempt. It was a vortex style impeller like we had on all the other Zoeller pumps.
So in 1989, we bought the assets of Kenco. I've heard some stories. Why don't you guys set the record straight and tell me the true verdict?
You know, when you take a look at how that all started, of course, moving a whole facility from Lorain, Ohio to Louisville, Kentucky, between the three of us, Ken Zoeller, myself, and John, you got about three clowns trying to drive forklifts and loading trucks that were pretty entertaining if you were there. We brought back everything that we thought that we could use, which basically meant just about everything in the building. But the challenge is that when we brought it back, you start organizing it. And we had to get all the drawings, which were on Mylar, electronically. And then how do you test these pumps? We didn't have any test tanks that could pump 400 gallons a minute, and so we designed our first test tank inside this little building, knowing that we're going to move it in a couple years. The test tank that's out there actually comes apart, and it's got a couple of gasket seams in it to keep it from leaking, so that when we moved it, you could take it apart, re-gasket it, and put it back together.
And it's still being used today, the same test tank. Yeah. One of our biggest things that we had to go through when we first started is that, of course, Zoeller was known for small pumps, okay? We had great suppliers for small parts and small pump parts. All of a sudden we got into this large pump housings, large motor housings, so we had to have new suppliers for that. We were a repetitive pump company that brought in pumps, parts, put them together in 1 or 2 days, machined them, assembled them, and out the door. We didn't keep a lot of the inventory. It was just-in-time inventory. We had to shift to a new way of thinking that we're going to bring in parts, design this to make these parts so that they can be put on a shelf and then make them custom as it goes. This was a whole different idea. What we still wanted to do is be efficient as we were with the small pumps, with the large pumps, and this was the biggest challenge that we had.
And you know, we're trying to get into a market that was very well secured by some very large competitors. And so what did we have that they didn't have? Well, at that time, the average lead time for any pump in that market was 16 weeks. You want a pump, you got a pump that went down, well, I got this one over here, but that one don't work. Well, that's what I got over here. If you need one made to order, it's going to be 16 weeks. And so we set out to be able to do all this in a 2-week time period. And if you had a pump down that you needed something, we would turn around in 24 hours, made to order, exactly what you wanted, get it out the door.
So in 1991, we've kind of right now we've got a product line ready to sell. How many reps did we kind of have in the initial launch, and maybe some stories on how we gained some reps?
Didn't have many, and the ones we had were probably all Zoeller Pump Company reps. Fortunately, a few of them had some experience with bigger pumps. For the most part, they were all interested. They all wanted to be Zup reps.
But you got to remember, Flight, Goulds, Myers, I mean, those were the big guys in our industry back in those days. And why is a rep that has a very broad product line, very established, going to take a chance on us?
Finding reps was difficult and probably the hardest thing to do because, as John said, you weren't going to sell a leading brand and jeopardize that by taking on another line. So basically, we were getting people that had either maybe left and starting their own company, or there's always people that lose lines. But slowly but surely, we picked up some people.
Did you guys encounter any difficulties or roadblocks when you were establishing the Zep brand, and how did you resolve them?
Well, when you talk about roadblocks, you know, you start with the internal ones first. Kind of take a repetitive manufacturing philosophy that everybody was very comfortable with, and letting them know that we're going to build made to order in 2 weeks, and we're just going to do one. The concept was just very challenging with everybody internally. Over time, people understood how we were going to do that and became comfortable with it, but internally it was a huge challenge.
You had these established competitors selling into this market. You hear it all the time. Oh, you guys make the small pumps. That was really a roadblock, just gaining confidence from people that we could really produce the bigger pumps for this particular marketplace. And that coincided with the roadblock and the difficulty we had in finding reps. And finally, what was actually a very narrow product line, I mean, those 3 factors right there were big roadblocks we had to overcome.
Can you guys list any significant milestones that you might remember in the first decade of the Zep brand?
50 units sold in a month. The first time we did that, we went out and had lunch.
The milestone to me is the 61 HD. When we came out with the 61 HD, it was all new castings, all new parts, all new performance. It was a new pump. We were producing our own pump, not producing Robinson Myers design. It was our design, our performance, everything was new. When we got that pump out and put it in the field, then I felt we were really doing something. Now we have a Zoeller pump out there, not something that we are building of someone else's design.
That is my milestone too, and it also coincided with what John was saying, because before the 61 HDs, we never had a 50 unit month. And I verified this looking at my old records almost to the date, which was 1999. Our average pumps sold per month went from significantly less than 50 per month to consistently more than 50 a month. So that 50 pump a month coincided with the introduction of the 61 HD. Not only because it was our product, but we got so much more out of that 140 frame motor.
And it was efficient to build. That was the key thing to Zoeller, was build a pump efficiently. And we couldn't do that with the old Robinson Meyer design.
Are there any special projects you worked on in Zepp's early years that stick out in your mind? What makes them stand out to you?
There's 3 projects that jump out at me. 2 were jobs we sold. One was the Bellingham, Washington job that John spoke about earlier with the 18 duplex pump housings. But the long and short of it was, we got the order, we built 36 pumps, shipped them on time, they all worked, no issues, and they were working years later.
And the other thing that it gave is we now had a deadline. That everybody here knew that we had to ship these pumps in 18 months, and so we had to figure things out. I mean, what we learned and became really important to drive things, to get things done. I mean, it was a big job.
The third project that's not something we sold, but had the project I was involved in, which I considered a project, was our catalog. Our initial catalog that we created was kind of a copycat version of what Kenco had, I think. We'd have these training sessions where we'd bring people in to train, and eventually it would turn on this catalog and people would just complain about this. We thought the catalog was great, but our customers and reps made us realize that, no, we got to redesign our catalog. Myself and an intern at that time totally redesigned, reorganized the catalog and how the data was presented. That's when we went to the brake horsepower rating instead of the horsepower rating. That same catalog is being used today.
Do you guys have any stories y'all want to share working together as y'all were starting this brand over 30 years ago?
Walking through the plant with John used to be a trip. Kind of scary if you hadn't done this before, because you were afraid that things were going to start getting thrown at you, because he would get abused verbally every 25 steps by people in the plant. I thought, my gosh, what are these guys going to think about me if they see me with him, and how much the dislike or those, whatever you had going. But then I learned it was just a big practical joke, and John, although he was on best behavior when I was with him, he could give it out as good as take it.
2021 marks Zepp's 30th anniversary. Could you share any comments or thoughts you have around reaching this milestone?
Well, I'm just real proud to have been a part of it. I wish I could see Don Fleming and thank him for trusting me and helping him get the sales and marketing side going. I told him I could. I don't know how well I did, but I know Don never lost faith in what Zepp was going to accomplish and why it was important to the organization.
The support that we had from upper management when we started this, we may have been the face of it, but we were just that, the face of it. It was our responsibility to coordinate with everybody else to make sure that what we had envisioned was implemented. We did a lot of the face work, being out there in that aspect, but without the support and help that we had all throughout the organization, we would not be where we are today. You look at that going forward, and this is a long-term plan. Where we are today is not where we're going to be 5 years from now. We've got plans to keep moving forward. We're going to be striving to serve the customer better with new products, new innovations. Some of the things that we've got coming up are really exciting that cannot wait to be able to get out in the marketplace based upon the input that we've received from our customers and from the reps. And so I'm excited about the future, because this is just where we are today, not where we're going to be. And as Mr. Bob had envisioned for Engineered Products to be a lot bigger than what it is today, he saw that we could fill that marketplace in a very effective way. And that's where we're going to be.
We're very proud to be celebrating this 30-year milestone. Though Zepp has been around for some time, our team is just getting started. The foundation that has been laid by you three is our launching pad. And I thank you and all the other ZEP team members out there for their role in building such a solid platform. Their efforts have provided this opportunity. When ZEP started 30 years ago, my grandfather had some big goals for this brand. And though we haven't quite achieved those goals yet, I'm confident with the team we have here, we will achieve his aims and more. My vision for the brand is simple. When people hear Zoeller, they think of small residential pumps. But with ZEP, we're going to change that perception. I could not be more excited about the future of ZEP.